Hey YouTube, Coppersan here. Dual blades are always pretty high up my bossing mule list, but I haven't taken a closer look at them since the Destiny update. So today we're going to train our dual blade to level 210 and defeat some bosses on it to see just how well it does as a bossing mule. Having a bossing mule in general has a ton of advantages. You can easily get hundreds of millions of mesos from your boss runs. Daily bosses alone easily generate over 60 million mesos per day in the reboot server on this character, and on the regular server those bosses are a great way to make some mesos by selling the accessories that they drop. And of course they're a good source of occult cubes and reward points. But having a dual blade bossing mule actually has a few additional advantages, especially for those with a lower amount of legion and link skills. Dual blade's shadow melt is super useful for that, because every time you dodge an attack, which is something that you do pretty often as a thief class, all your attacks will become critical for 7 seconds. This effect has a 5-second cooldown, so it could stay up indefinite as long as you stay in combat and as long as you keep getting missed. Being a thief class, a dual blade can also use their dark side skill to dodge any falling debris in boss fights, and this class has the advanced dark side, which gives you a chance to stay in dark side when attacking. They also have a 10% chance to recover 20% HP with every attack, which is amazing for when you're potion locked during those boss battles, and they can place down a dummy that boss monsters will target. Sometimes. Apparently when you have a familiar out, it doesn't always want to work that well, but it also triggers shadow melt, so at least you'll have your max crit rate more often. Dual blades have another really amazing skill that makes them invincible and increases their final damage by 40%. It makes you invincible for 3 seconds. This skill, Final Cut, has been changed with Destiny. It no longer dashes you forward. Personally, I kinda like the movement you got with this skill, but hey, that's gone now. Also keep in mind, only when you actually fully cast the attack, you'll get your invincibility frame. You can still hold it and charge it, but if you don't let go, you're actually not invincible. I had to find it out the hard way, unfortunately, a rookie mistake. Your other invincibility frame comes from your third job skill, Chains of Hell. You're only invincible during the attack though, and this class can get super stance when they use their hyper skill Asura's Anger. When this attack is active, you won't get knocked back by skills like Magnus' Spin and Lotus' Push. So you get passive healing, you get a ton of crit rate, you have a boss lure with your mirror target, 2 invincibility frames, super stance, and those are just some of your utility tools. Dual blade's bossing skill, Phantom Blow, also has a passive 30% ignore defense effect, which gets another 20% added on top of that once you put a point in that passive hyper skill Guard Break. Dual bladers do kinda need that though. This class does not get any passive ignore defense or boss damage buffs, so having a bit more of that through links, legion, hyper skills and gear is recommended. The ignore defense stat is necessary, but not missed that much, because your IAD is just on your skills and not on your base stats. For example, the 5th job Blade Tornado and Blade Tempest skill both have a passive 100% ignore defense effect. And your Blades of Destiny also passively ignores 30% defense, so your visual ignore defense doesn't need to go super high thanks to all the passives on your attacks. When I took this class bossing, I actually did learn a few new tricks. For example, if you use Blade Tornado and then Blades of Destiny, the latter skill actually fires off a bit faster, and apparently Asura's Anger can actually block out some attacks. It's like a pseudo iframe. Like the Acarium Screen Crack, it can dodge the bomb skills from bosses. It's actually a pretty cool hidden tech right there, because I definitely did not know that. It also dodges Papilladis lasers when the screen explodes apparently. So when I took this character bossing, I was able to defeat Chaos Cocoon with 4.6k stats. It was a pretty long fight, but very doable. I did have to use the iframes a couple of times, but overall it was pretty chill. Dual bladers do have some very important buffs though, like Final Cut and their hyper skill buff that they have to keep up at all times. I'm also using the Angelic Buster Link skill just to increase my damage during my burst. But being this early in the game, it can still be pretty tough to fight all these bosses, especially solo. Like Chaos Pink Bean was giving me a pretty hard time, surprisingly. I could tank Pink Bean's strongest attack and have 400 HP to spare. So surviving that was easier said than done. I actually died out once to Chaos Pink Bean. I never thought I would do that. Before I started the next boss fights, I did have a bit of fun upgrading my gear. I was wondering if I could push this character into Root Abyss maybe, to perhaps take down at least the first few bosses. I got all my gear to at least epic and 6% luck. My weapon ranked up from a random Master Craftsman cube to unique, so I spent about 1.5 billion to roll some nice potential lines on that. My emblem, my secondary and my shoes all got to unique with at least 2 decent lines. At this point in the video I have 6012 luck, 88% IED, 179% boss damage and 48% damage. My damage range is about 750k to 840k without Final Cut active, so if you're also a DB you can compare that to your DB. Oh, and also fun fact, I used a random boost trio that boosted Blade Fury, Asura's Anger and Sudden Raid, so I'm not buffing my bossing skill Phantom Blow. Blade Tempest is level 7 thanks to me buffing up the node slot, and Blades of Destiny is level 2, so I basically have nothing when it comes to my actual 5th job notes. I first wanted to try the boss that I find easiest to defeat in CRA, Chaos Pierre, and man, I was so close to bursting him down with the Angelic Bustling skill, but I just fell short. Also keep in mind I'm using a Monster Park potion and a boss damage potion over here. The burst took Pierre's HP down to 1.4%. Thankfully though, we just revived without a hat and one-shot both Pierres after the split. Well, sort of one-shot, the red Pierre just teleported away, but in the end we got the job done. Chaos Von Bon was also pretty doable. I was just testing the waters. This was actually the first run on this character, but even without keeping the time in mind and dodging most things the boss threw at me, I was able to take down the chicken as well. I never actually imagined I could do this boss fight with only 6k stats in this time frame. But before you hop onto your dual blade, do keep in mind though, please, I have 8.6k Legion, almost all level 3 link skills, plus the Tobin Hair hero is giving a lot of buffs as well. That's why my IED and my boss damage is that high. But it does show this class can be a mean bosser without a lot of notes really, or any high stats. We're at 6k luck, man, what the heck. So bossing is pretty darn good. This class does have a lot of cooldowns though, very important buffs to manage, with some 90-second buffs, 10, 12 and 30-second cooldown attacks. There are plenty of buttons to keep track of, not to mention using Dark Side to avoid any debris, and having a bind and Air the Nova is a must to get your burst off without getting interrupted. So bossing is pretty dope, but what about the grinding? Well, getting a dual blade actually to level 200, that's a tough job. The mobbing skill is very small and it takes a long time to cut through those monsters. My main gripes with mobbing was actually the mobility though. Dual bladers don't have an up jump, instead they need to use the Blade Ascension skill. This skill can be used in the air as much as you'd like, but you don't get that much ground with it, it just doesn't go that high. If you press the up button while you're using Blade Ascension, you'll actually go a little bit higher, but if you do that, you're a one-hit wonder and cannot use that skill again until you touch the ground again. This class really needs rope lift in those taller maps to get around quickly. 5th job mobbing is not amazing for this class, but the 5th job skills do make up for the lackluster 4th job mobbing skill. I would say mobbing is a bit average. Making this character off-season is also pretty tough. I really had a hard time to get notes on reboot, so I couldn't really boost any of those. Dual blades do have pretty easy notes though, even though they do have a lot of different attacks. For your boost notes, I would make a mobbing trio with Blade Fury, Sudden Raid and Blade Ascension, and a second bossing note with Phantom Blow, Blade Clone and Asura's Anger. Feel free to leave your own insights on the notes by the way if you're a dual blade main or just have more experience with the class. And for your inner ability, you want to go for boss damage on the first line, attack on the second line and skip cooldown or buff duration on the third line. So this is the dual blader. They are one of the easier to play thieves with a forgiving playstyle if you make use of all the tools at your disposal. They have 2.5 iframe for example, and passive healing. Their passive buffs make it easy to get going even with fewer links and legion skills, but they do have quite a few cooldowns and important buffs to manage. And to get the best in slot Katara, you will have to do commercial voyages. It's a pretty fun class in my opinion that will keep you busy while grinding, and once you develop muscle memory for your skill locations on your keyboard, they can be very deadly in the right hands. What do you think about the dual blade class yourself? Are you maybe maining one? Have any tips to share? Of course, let everyone know in the comments. And that was all for today. As always, many thanks to our members for making these videos possible. Thanks to Niels, Coninck, Raar, maar waar, Sebastian, Hanoy, Ryalias, Terry Kim, Vareese, Mora, Wiley, Historycanon, BackSpaceOTI, Saffronyx, Ziggydeer, Flidiot, Knifesu, Cloudfix, Gusus Rodriguez, Digby, Vira, Trevor, Michael Menchaca, Ratius, Justin Vale, Silvio Nato, Afterlord_MS, Striker Elk, Tide1 Pun, Radical Jaws, Ricer Are Sir Tito 655, Mathias Simonsson, PC Game Life, The Passenger, Martin Panzik, Conrad Crystallis, Ace Light, Mr. Anarch, Ben Wolf, Max Bernhardt, Muka 1017, BMB King, Scotty Flies Fast, Priscilla, Brandon Cam, Vake Botnet, Fecko, Victor Sundstrom, ceemak, Only, Rashid Alharmoudi, Gerlando Belavia, Gianfranco, Calderon Canavedo, Lucky Beats, Matthew Def, Gummy Bullet, Lord Fazil and Spuds D. Kaiser. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay safe and happy mapling!